it goes right, it's a slice. If it goes left, it's a hook. If it goes straight, it's a miracle. This is Out of Bounds. If it's happening in the world of golf, we're talking about it. Coverage, debate, discussion, pro golf and local golf. Let's do it. This is Out of Bounds. And here are your hosts, Nate Sharman and Josh Durso.
Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Out of Bounds podcast presented by FingerLakes1.com. Josh Durso, Nate Sharman, and Paul Russo here to get you ready for the Valspar Championship this weekend at Copperhead. But first, we need to talk about some golf news that broke yesterday. Changes possibly coming to the golf ball. Nate, what do we got?
Yeah, pleasure to be here with you guys on Zoom. A little bit different than we've been doing on the podcast, but excited for the changes. But the golf ball, is also possibly going through some changes. The USGA and the R&A announced that they might come up with a new local rule that were to roll back the golf ball, if you will, a little bit, taking about 15 to 30 yards difference off some of the pros' drives. This has obviously been a take that people do not like. Like people love to see the long ball and stuff like that. So I've been thinking about it a little bit. I'm not really sure where I'm kind of sitting on it. Josh, I'd love to hear it. And Paul, too, I'd love to hear your guys' kind of thoughts about it. It could level the playing field a little bit, kind of taking some of these longer guys down to a little bit of shorter level. But at the same time, we love to see the long ball, like I said. So it's going to be really intriguing to see if they do go with that local rule.
So the long ball hitters are still going to be the longest hitters on tour.
Yes.
The shorter hitters are just going to not hit the ball as long as the long ball.
Not hit the ball 40, 50 yards shorter than they are now. Some of the guys, average close to that 330 number, and some are in the 280 number. So it can be a real difference. Yeah,
it's interesting. On one hand, I'm pretty opposed to it because it's part, I think, of what has made golf more exciting in recent years. Our guys hitting the ball further, even not necessarily just as much like Bryson DeChambeau, who obviously hits the ball a very long way. But even for, any given weekend, you see like a 300 or 315 yard par four, and, probably like 50% of the field is like taking a shot at the green. Maybe more than
awesome.
that.
It's exciting,
right? Like maybe more than that. I think it's interesting. And the other thing that I keep coming back to is like this idea that the golf ball is the problem, that the golf ball or equipment in general needs to be changed in order to make golf courses more fit to be a challenge for these guys. I mean, just look at what Bay Hill did 2 weeks ago. I mean, to me, if you want to make these courses more challenging, if you want to make them tougher for guys, even courses that are now on the modern tour, I guess, obsolete. I know there are some courses that have been thrown around on golf Twitter where they just can't really host. Can't really host now. Grow the roughs out, make the greens fast, and it will keep scoring down. I mean, we've literally seen majors and now regular events, albeit elevated events, with finishing scores at or under 10 under par, which for a 4-round golf tournament is very impressive. Yeah. And to me, how on earth, Nate, think about it this way. How on earth would all of the entities that are involved in this thing get together and like come together on this to be able to come up with something, right? Like you've got the manufacturers, you've got the different tours, you've got the different governing bodies that are involved. It's just too much. Like if you want to make the game more competitive, stick with trying to make the courses tougher, even if they're shorter. That could be a hell of a lot more entertaining for some golf fans, I would think, if they play a short course.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of that too, Josh, I think golf course design could be a portion where they could get better to, strategic layup areas where guys are going to hit it more, to have bunkering along the fairways and just have really penalized areas if guys are able to hit it right or left at that longer distance that they are now. So I think that's one way, instead of just lengthening the golf course, which is extremely hard to do, you can kind of design it better and have bunkering in different areas and more penalized areas for where guys are going to be at more times.
Yeah. And the other thing too, and I would throw this over at Paul, would be If we're going to play devil's advocate here and talk about, why there should be a standardized ball, we don't see different teams playing with different baseballs. We don't see different teams playing with different basketballs. Like every other sport that involves a ball has a standardized ball. So there is, on that side of it, I think there's an argument for it. But, Paul, is like a more casual golf fan, is this something that you think would help or hurt the product?
I think for me personally, I'd say hurt. And, you talk about baseball, I'll go the cliche route, right? Chicks take the long ball. It's the more excitement. And something I kind of thought about actually, when Nate brought it up at first is we have, someone in our age demographic specifically that has come to prominence in top golf, where the whole objective is to just blast it as far as you can, pretty much.
Right. That's a good point.
For the entertainment value of it. So yeah, I mean, I do agree. I think, I don't see it as a product issue so much as it is, say, maybe like a venue issue or something like that. I think, you talk about other sports, not to go down too far of a different path here, but like, people talk about in NASCAR about how like, oh, this short track package is bad. Well, maybe it's not the package. Maybe it's Phoenix Raceway that's the problem. Yeah, similar to like what you were saying about maybe we grow the roughs out a little bit longer, stuff like that, where it's not the player, not the equipment, but rather the venue that's the real issue at hand.
Yeah, and the interesting thing I think also is, the timeline of this. How on earth is this going to get rolled out? Like Live, I don't think is going to adopt it. So you're going to have one, you're going to have, and I guess you could potentially have a scenario where like, the Euro Tour and the American Tour have two different rule classifications. It gets so weird. And, I also think that the difference between what the casual golfer, the amateur golfer plays in terms of golf ball and the professional golfer, the elite golfer, the idea that they're playing the same golf ball is, I think, one of the things that makes comparing more interesting. And if you create this, this standard golf ball that all of a sudden is not the golf ball that the average person is playing, it creates another disconnect between the average, golf consumer and the elite tour. Come up with a better plan. Just come up with a better plan. I just don't like any part of this.
The only good thing I have about it, what I would be supportive of it, is we've been talking so much about pace of play, right? So I think if you do make this golf ball shorter, and then you don't have to, like you said, you don't have to make the greens longer or make the greens faster, make the rough longer and stuff like that. You're therefore, by doing those two things, rough longer, greens slicker, and more tricky, you could increase pace of play that way. You can make it longer for guys to play these golf courses. By taking the golf ball down, you indirectly, I think, can possibly improve pace of play because the greens aren't going to be maybe not as slick, rough maybe not going to be as long. So maybe in an indirect way, pace of play does improve, which we've seen as a big problem, in my opinion, on the PGA Tour this season.
Yeah, my only argument against that would be just if you watch enough golf, you see the guys that take longer over the golf ball, and it has absolutely nothing. I don't think it has much to do with people waiting for the green to clear on a 310-yard par 4. I think it has way more.
Right, but it definitely does. Guys spend a lot of time on the greens, is what I've noticed, especially when the greens are slick. Like you saw it at Sawgrass. You have some instance where you can put the ball off the green into the water. I mean, so that's something else you have to think about when these greens are slick and it's hard to stop the golf ball on them when you're hitting your approach shot. Guys are going to just generally take longer.
Yeah, that's fair. Did we get any timeline? Did they give any sort of timeline for when they think this will roll out? Yeah, we're too early.
If there's one, I didn't see it.
Too early in this process, of course. Okay, so let's shift gears and talk a little bit about what we have coming up this weekend. Valspar Championship. Nate, what do we have looking at here? Obviously, a non-designated event, so there's that.
Right. Yeah, so it's a non-designated event after a couple of elevated events, so we see a little bit of a weaker field, obviously, but like you've said, it's not the weakest field we've seen. Justin Thomas is still there. Jordan Spieth, the favorites. It's still awesome to see those two guys playing. We're staying in Florida for the continued Florida swing here before we move out to Texas. So it's still cool to see the big guys even playing in this non-elevated event. But we're at Copperhead Golf Club. Par 71 stretches out to about 7,300 yards. And this golf course isn't super easy. You know, it's not necessarily your wedge contest. You know, you've seen some pretty decently low scores over the years, but it's still a track that makes you think. You know, we saw our last 4 winners actually have been 2 repeat winners, with Paul Casey winning it twice. And then the last 2 years, we'll take out the COVID year, the last 2 years with Sam Burns winning. So it's going to be interesting to see if one of those, we won't see Paul Casey get his 3rd win. He's not there. He's over in Live. But Sam Burns could possibly three-peat, which would be a really interesting storyline.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think looking at the odds, and we're going to talk about the odds here in a few minutes, this is not a pushover field by any means. No. I think this will be a pretty competitive weekend, and it'll be a break for the folks who maybe are a little tired of seeing Scotty Scheffler and Jon Rahm just dominate.
And there's a live event this week too, so
yeah, got double trouble. Okay, so let's talk odds. Most favored. We don't need that. Obviously, you mentioned it. Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, top odds getters, plus 1,000, plus 1,200 there. We've got Sam Burns, Matt Fitzpatrick. They're rounding out the top 5. What are we looking at? Who do we think is a pick to win today?
Give me the Canadian Adam Hadwin. He's been playing decent so far. Won this event back in 2017. He's got a couple top 20 finishes as of late. Tied 13 at the Players, tied 10 at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. I think the Canadian continues to play well, and he gets back to his winning ways when he did here in 2017.
I was looking for someone who's been hanging around the elevated events the last few weeks, last month and a half. Justin Thomas, obviously he's favorite to win. So, that is a very safe, easy pick, but he has also been playing well enough to be hanging around on the weekend of these events. So I think in this field, he could have a breakout win, and who knows, that would probably give him some momentum heading deeper into the spring, I would think. Mm-hmm. Long shot value. What do we got? Who are you looking at?
I got a really spicy one, a really fun long shot. 130-1 Webb Simpson.
The longest of long shots.
He's been outright terrible on the PGA Tour this year. And my only bit of advice to anybody betting Webb Simpson this week at the Valspar: first, you're a crazy person. Second, betting Webb Simpson, this is a major winner, a guy that's won over 6 times on tour, a guy that's been there before and knows how to win. And you gave him Webb Simpson 131 odds? Sure, I'll take it. Why not?
Is he the bottom of the barrel?
No, this guy's a lot longer odds than that.
Gary Woodland. That's where I'm at. Plus 4,100, which I think is a nice middle of the road. He's not he's not all the way at the bottom. Major winner. He's a golfer. He's a guy that I think we kind of forget about because he doesn't do too much. But there was a time when he was a regular mainstay toward the top end of the tour. So. That's where I'm putting my long shot money this week.
Major winner. I think I won last week, first of all, which is one thing we gotta go. So I finally get a win. It's been a little while for me, but we gotta run through our lineups for this week at the Valspar. Be careful, guys. A couple players have withdrawn. A couple of guys like Keegan Bradley, he's withdrawn. On Aaron Ray, who I had in my lineup, I had to switch that one out. Yeah. So he's also a guy that's withdrawn. So just make sure if you're watching this. Make sure you get over and check your DraftKings lineups before they lock Thursday morning before that tournament, so you don't have a guy with 0 points. Because if you have a guy with 0 points, no shot.
Keegan Bradley, what are you doing withdrawing? Come on, stay in. So Nate, you go first. Tell us who you got.
All right, I got Matt Fitzpatrick, Adam Hadwin, KH Lee, Adam Shank, Justin Suh, and Michael Thompson round out my DraftKings lineup for the week.
And Paul, who do you have?
I went back to my system well here after venturing for a couple of weeks. So I took Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth. Might as well just take the heavy hitters and ask for forgiveness later. I went Johnny Vegas, Joel Damon, Patrick Rogers, and I forgive me for what I'm about to do to this poor kid's name. Zhejiang Do, I think it's pronounced, but he literally is the bottom of the budget. But he's made 7 of 13 cuts this year. and averages right under par at 71.2. So why not see what happens?
Not the worst thing then. Let's see. So I went with Justin Thomas, Sam Ryder, Justin Rose, Joel Damon, Joseph Bramlett, and Ash K, which I think Ash K, Nate, is probably the one that you were most interested in out of my lineup.
He's been playing well lately.
Yes, he's been hanging around, and I'm all about those guys that are just hanging around.
Second. Ash K came in, I think, second or third, and he I don't want to say it because I don't want to be wrong here, but I think he claimed tour status for either the rest of the year or next year with that high finish at Puerto Rico a couple weeks ago.
I think it would be a cool storyline if he got a win or something like that. This even finished like top 5 or something like that. I think that would be cool to sort of start building up one of those young guy brands a little bit. I'm just hoping to finally get a win. I haven't won yet. Literally haven't won yet. Man. It's terrible.
Paul's got to be in the lead. He's got to have 4 wins. I think I got one or 2.
I got 3 out of the 6. I think that we've done so far. So yeah, not bad.
So then it's got to be 3. It's got to be 3, 3,
2 and 1.
Yeah.
I bet you.
No, Josh. I think
you got one, Josh.
I think Josh. Yeah, I think you got.
We're 3, 2 and 1.
No,
Producer Paul in the lead.
Don't recall
I'm coming
that,
for you this week, though, Paul.
I'll take that. I'll take that bit of confidence. We will be back Monday with another edition of the Out of Bounds podcast. Be sure to follow us on TikTok and Instagram for more. And remember, whether it's down the middle or out of bounds, keep on swinging.
You've been listening to Out of Bounds. If it's coverage, debate, or discussion of pro and local golf, we'll be talking about it. Be sure to visit the website at fingerlakes1.com. Find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at OutOfBoundsFL1. See you next time on Out of Bounds.